Welcome. Tonight, we drift softly into the distant world of ancient Rome, not the grand, triumphant Rome you may picture, but something quieter, something darker, and very human. Let your mind wander through the cracked cobblestones of a Roman alley, the gentle flicker of oil lamps casting long shadows on worn walls. Imagine the faint rustle of tunics and the quiet clink of amphorae being stacked in some shaded corner. Close your eyes if they aren't already. Instead, we'll begin far below the marble villas and gold-trimmed togas. From the mines to the arena, from the ash of Pompeii to the cool mosaics of a senator's private atrium, our path will wind upward through layers of society. And along the way, we'll uncover whispers of rebellion, frozen moments in time, and the uneasy tension between cruelty and refinement. In the dust and labor of the lives that made Roman luxury possible, we begin in chains. This journey is not about the generals or the emperors, not at first, but we will rise too. Let the rhythm of ancient life settle in. Let the harshness be distant, softened by time, like faded inscriptions on a weathered wall. Let us begin. Imagine yourself waking not to sunlight, but to shouting. The light outside is still dim, just the faint gray that creeps into the stone barracks before dawn. You sleep on a straw-stuffed sack, or perhaps no sack at all, only a bare patch of floor among dozens of others. You are not your own. You belong to someone, or rather to their household, their estate, their ambition. There is no time to stretch, no time to dream. Never taste anything but grain porridge, or sleep anywhere that isn't damp. You may be born here and die here without anyone learning your name. Your tasks await because your body in Rome is a tool. Under the burning sun, chained laborers bend over endless rows of wheat or olives. Their backs ache, their hands blistered. Overseers on horseback shout, correct, punish. Some slaves live in the countryside, on the sprawling latifundia plantation estates that feed the empire. These are among the harshest conditions. The water must be warm, the towels folded just so. Some are trained as cooks or cleaners or personal attendants. Their labor is constant, their presence expected, their silence required. Or worse, a punishment designed to make an example of you. Some are branded, some are maimed. There is no end to the work, no safety. The tunnels are hot, airless, prone to collapse. They may be raised among other slaves in the household, given minor tasks until old enough to work properly. Raised alongside Roman children, they may even feel something like affection, but affection is not freedom. Their status is always conditional. At any moment, they can be sold. While some receive education or grooming for special service like tutoring, secretarial work, or companionship, many are simply absorbed into the unending current of obligation. Tools are crude, the work is crushing, and the men, women, and even children who labor here often die within months. Not from any single injury, but from a slow erosion of the body, the lungs, the spirit. Roman law regarded slaves not as people, but as property, and therefore punishable in whatever way the owner sees fit. A slave here may never see the city, never hear Latin spoken softly. A trusted slave might be rewarded with freedom for loyal service. These were not nameless shadows. These were people tired, afraid, resourceful, resigned, caught in the great machine of empire. Freedmen, as they were called, could work, marry, own property. Some even grew wealthy, but they never forgot. The chains may have been struck from their limbs, but not from their memory. A man whose defiance would terrify the Senate itself. There were stories told at night of gods, of monsters, of distant lands, and of freedom. Others, in cities, fare only slightly better. Rich men in colored robes lay reclined on couches, their hands idle, their laughter slow and wine-soaked. But laws in ancient Rome often served the wealthy, not the suffering. Many of these regulations were ignored. Abuses were common. and those who endured them had few, if any, paths to justice. A quiet friendship between two laborers in a vineyard, sharing wine dregs by moonlight, a small kindness, a joke, a memory of home. One is overindulged. He vomits into a bowl, and it is your task to clean it. In the crowded tenement alleys of Rome, household slaves rise early to begin preparations, baking bread, fetching water, preparing to attend their master's baths. And some serve in more humiliating ways. Picture a grand Roman feast, not tomorrow, not discreetly. Now, you do this not only because it is expected, but because not doing so might mean the lash. Still, even this is not the worst. There are the mines. Deep under the earth, far from sunlight and scent, slaves dig for the wealth that fuels Rome's extravagance: gold, silver, lead. Occasionally, a child is born into slavery. These are called Verney house-born slaves. In some cases, they grow close to the family, to strangers, to the countryside, or to a place no one speaks of directly, the brothels. There were laws about how many slaves a person could whip, or how they must be fed. And yet, within these brutal confines, there is still humanity, a whispered song passed between workers in the kitchens, a stolen moment of rest behind an amphora in the storehouse. The rhythm of a slave's life in Rome was dictated by labor and fear, but not entirely without light. For some, that freedom was imagined. For a rare few, it was real. Manumission, the act of freeing a slave, was not common, but it was possible. And so we linger here in the slowest tier of Roman life, not to dwell in suffering, but to understand the foundation upon which Roman power rested. As the wind blows dust through the streets and the city stirs above them, they keep working. And in the distance, rumblings of something more. A name will soon echo through the camps and fields. A slave who would not kneel. We turn now to Spartacus. Let us now travel quietly to the edge of rebellion. The ground beneath Rome trembles not from earthquakes, but from footsteps, thousands of them. Sandals worn thin, muscles hardened by labor and by battle. And leading them, at first reluctantly, is a man who was never meant to be remembered, and yet was. His name was Spartacus. We do not know his birth name. There, he was prepared like a commodity train to fight, to entertain, to die well. Given a wooden sword in practice, a sharp one in the arena. What we do know, gently pieced together from Roman records, is that he was not Roman, but Thracian-born in a region north of Greece, in a place of hills, pastures, and sharp wooded ridges. He may have fought as a soldier once, possibly even with Rome. Some sources say he deserted. Others suggest he was captured during a campaign, chained and sold. Either way, he became a gladiator. Not in the Grand Colosseum, not yet, but in a private training school. A ludus located in Capua. Imagine the life inside those walls. Heavy meals designed to build bulk, not strength. Grueling drills, instructors with rods, not random, but strategic. Spartacus showed a gift not only for survival, but for leadership. He fed his people, he trained them, he imposed discipline. Other men like you, slaves, criminals, prisoners of war, each one measuring their chances for survival in quiet glances. And in the background, always, was death, not dramatic. Not noble, but planned, scheduled, and profitable. Spartacus was not the strongest, not the bloodiest, but he was observant. He waited, he listened, and one day he struck. In 73 BCE, Spartacus and a small group of fellow gladiators broke free. Could those who had been broken rebuild? Could a society forged in pain become something new? Armed at first with kitchen tools, knives, spits, whatever could be found, they fought their way out of the school and fled into the countryside. Along the way, they captured wagons of real weapons meant for Roman soldiers. Other slaves began to gather field hands, miners, herders, house servants. The group swelled, not just in number, but in desperation. Some brought their families, others brought nothing at all. They could have disappeared. Many did, but Spartacus stayed. He wasn't alone. Spartacus found himself the reluctant leader of what would soon become Rome's worst nightmare, a slave army. Mile after mile of suffering nailed to wood. It was not glorious. It was chaos. Spartacus is said to have cut down many foes himself, searching for Crassus in the melee. He had made senators whisper, and centuries later his name would echo far beyond Italy. His body was never found. Perhaps it was trampled. Perhaps it was buried beneath others. They camped on Mount Vesuvius, not yet the infamous volcano it would become, and from there launched raids, and the Romans underestimated him. A place where everyday life, frozen by catastrophe, reveals the quiet truth of how Romans lived. They sent a small force, it was defeated, then another, also defeated. The Senate began to grow uneasy. Spartacus wasn't just surviving, he was winning. At one point, his army may have numbered over 70,000. Now, let's pause. This wasn't a simple rebellion. It was, in many ways, a question. We don't know exactly what Spartacus intended. Some believe he wanted simply to escape north to cross the Alps and scatter. Others think he dreamed of marching on Rome itself. But he never made it to the city gates. For nearly 2 years, his forces moved through Italy, disrupting trade routes, destroying villas, embarrassing the legions. A series of Roman commanders failed to subdue him. The Senate grew nervous, and then they turned to Marcus Licinius Crassus. Crassus was not a man of patience or subtlety. He was wealthy, ruthless, and deeply ambitious. He reformed discipline among his soldiers by reintroducing an ancient and brutal punishment, decimation. If a unit fled or failed, 1 in every 10 men was killed. By the other 9, Crassus surrounded Spartacus's army, trapping them in the south. Desperate, Spartacus tried to negotiate passage. The offer was ignored. Then came the final battle. We know little of its precise location. Some say near the Salaris River. What followed was a spectacle of Roman cruelty. Over 6,000 captured rebels were crucified along the Appian Way, the long road leading into Rome. A warning, a display. But even here, even in defeat, Spartacus left a mark. Rome remembered, not fondly, not kindly, but clearly. He had shaken their foundations, a Thracian, a gladiator, a slave, and a symbol. As the embers of his rebellion fade, we turn now to a different kind of preservation, not in memory, but in ash. A city held still in its final breath. We travel now to Pompeii. Now, let us slow even further. The rush of rebellion is behind us, and we enter a stillness unlike any other in history. The town of Pompeii lies silent. It has been silent for nearly 2,000 years, but once it lived. Imagine warm, dusty streets under the Campanian sun. Narrow alleys between sun-bleached homes, their facades painted in ochres and reds. The scent of fresh bread drifting from a corner bakery. Laughter soft and passing trickling from behind a shaded courtyard. Pompeii was not a capital, not even a major port, but it was comfortable, prosperous, a place of traders, artisans, and minor aristocrats close enough to Rome to feel its pulse, but far enough to breathe at its own pace. And then, one day in 79 CE, the mountain turned. Vesuvius, looming in the near distance, erupted with a force that turned daylight to night and covered Pompeii and nearby Herculaneum in ash and stone and silence. But it did not destroy everything. It preserved. Not perfectly, not kindly, but with a kind of eerie completeness. Whole streets. Tables with dishes still set. Human figures, their last movements captured in hardened ash. A city in mid-step, paused between breath and oblivion. And so, now, we walk its lanes once more, not to gawk, but to observe, to listen, to gently notice what was once alive. Let's begin at the bakery. You'll see the millstones, first large, hourglass-shaped stones used to grind grain. Some still sit in place, frozen mid-turn. Ovens remain too, with soot still clinging to their arched ceilings. Loaves of bread were found here, carbonized but intact, round and scored with lines for easy sharing. There are markings nearby graffiti, scribbled by an anonymous hand, the buzz of conversation around you, the clatter of utensils, a dog barking in the distance. The entrance opens onto an atrium, where sunlight would filter through a central opening above a shallow pool, the impluvium. Rainwater would be collected here. Flower beds, columns, a gentle breeze rustling through the ghost of vines. The walls are painted with mythological scenes, Achilles, Iphigenia, silent and unblinking. Its counters are lined with embedded clay jars, once filled with lentils, stews, wine. The walls are painted with menu items, images of fish and poultry, decorative garlands. I was here. So was Livia, or Lucius owes me 10 sesterces. Above each doorway, frescoes depict the services offered. Functional, yes, but also artistic. The Roman view of sexuality was different from ours, less hidden, less stigmatized, but not less transactional. Some are lewd. Some are poetic, many are mundane. Together, they speak in a chorus of forgotten voices, ordinary people, living ordinary days. Wander down the street, and you'll find a thermopolium, a Roman snack bar. Imagine leaning here, a bowl of something warm in hand, resting before your errands resume. Step into one of the modest homes, perhaps the house of the tragic poet. Senators and slaves alike, bathed here, though not together. Plaster casts made centuries later show the curled forms of children, the outstretched hands of parents, the bowed heads of animals. The water was heated by furnaces tended by lower-class workers. The air, thick with steam, would carry the soft murmur of gossip, the drip of condensation on marble. Further in, past the family's private rooms, you find a peristyle garden, small, enclosed, orderly, to a statue half-toppled in a garden, to a room painted in vivid blue, where someone once sat to read. Even in modest homes, beauty mattered. And yet, Pompeii was not only refined, it was raw, lively, sometimes bawdy. Their names were rarely written on walls, unless cursed or thanked, in rare cases, by a kind master. Step into the Lupanar, the city's brothel. Cramped rooms, stone beds with thin mattresses. Far from the crowds, far from the chaos. Outside, more graffiti. Atticus was here, he pleased me well. Or, don't trust Marcia, she steals rings. And again, Felix loves Julia. Etched into walls by passers-by, workers, lovers, and children. Little echoes of living thought. Elsewhere in the city, public baths tell of communal routines, hot rooms, cold plunges, massage oils. Pompeii was not a utopia. It had class divisions, exploitation, noise, odors, flies, slavery. Slaves served in nearly every household. They swept these floors. They poured wine into these cups. But in the sudden burial of Pompeii, those distinctions blurred. The poor and the rich died alike, caught in streets, in doorways, in their sleep. Still, we do not dwell here. We return gently to the quiet things. To a basket of figs left on a kitchen table. Pompeii is not simply a tragedy. It is a time capsule, an unintentional museum of the everyday. And through its silence, we learn not only how Romans died, but how they lived. Now we climb once more this time, high above the city streets, not to the temple, not to the theater, but to the villa, the Roman senator's country retreat. Here, marble cools underfoot, and fountains murmur softly. But nothing is untouched by the world below, even luxury. Has its chains. Now, rise slowly with me, up the sloping roads that wind away from the urban bustle, past the shops and taverns, beyond the shouting of vendors, the laughter in the baths, the grind of carts on stone, out into the countryside. where cypress trees line the paths like sentinels and vineyards stretch in orderly rows. The air is drier here, quieter. Ahead, perched on a gentle hill, is the villa. A senator's villa, it is not a fortress, nor merely a house. It is a world. Step into the forecourt, large, open, clean. Columns and neat symmetry. A slave waits by the door, not the kind who tells soil or runs messages, but one of quiet presence. His job is to greet, to usher, to observe. He nods, and you enter. Inside, the world softens. The floors are cool marble mosaics arranged in tiny tesserae squares of stone and glass, depicting sea creatures, hunting scenes, or abstract patterns that seem to shimmer in sunlight. A cook lights the kitchen fire with a puff of smoke and the crumple of old scroll paper. He has been trained not to be noticed. Another slave grinds herbs with a rhythmic stone motion. Bread, already prepared earlier, is warmed. Honey is poured into terracotta bowls. A low writing table, scroll racks, a bronze lamp. Here, when he does wake, he will receive clients, petitioners, freedmen, fellow senators in need of favor or advice. Trusted slaves handle correspondence, accounting, inventories. Others manage the baths, the gardens, the animals. Another plays the lyre softly in the background while guests recline. They are not guests, really. They are instruments of reputation. And each evening is an opportunity to polish status with subtle gestures of wealth and taste. Some entertain. Fountains murmur softly, their basins fed by pipes that twist through the walls. The air smells faintly of myrrh and beeswax. The master of the house is not yet awake. His day begins late, certainly not before the 9th hour. Cushions embroidered with indigo and gold. The master reclines on one, a goblet in hand. He does not pour the wine himself. A servant mixes it 2 parts water, 1 part red, and pours, carefully, from a decorated jug. A quote from Virgil. A joke about a rival. A murmur of military news from the east. Until then, the villa breathes quietly. Slaves move gently through corridors, barefoot, practiced. A young boy sweeps the walkway beneath the columns. He is about 12, born into the household, perhaps, and raised here. His eyes are alert, but not afraid. To refill, to replace, to retrieve. His hands are clean, his face neutral. Beyond the public rooms lie the private ones. In the way, a villa seems to hum with order, as though every step, every sound, every breath is choreographed. The master's study is shaded, sparsely furnished, but it is rich with meaning, with power, and with contradiction. But here, behind high walls and carved lintels, all is still. His power lies not in violence, but in influence. And influence is built in quiet meetings, shared meals, mutual debts. Others, like the kitchen boy, may dream fitfully of the countryside, of mothers or sisters they barely remember. Some hold on to nothing but routine. The household is complex structured in invisible layers. Freedmen serve in managerial roles. A poet, enslaved but educated, recites verses at dinner. Imagine the dining room triclinium. 3 couches arranged in a U-shape. Courses arrive, olives in brine, dormice stuffed with herbs, fish garnished with garum, the sharp, salty sauce beloved by Romans. They eat slowly. The conversation is careful. Light, but never idle. Across the room, silent, a slave waits. If a guest gestures even faintly, he moves. No one asks his name, and yet he sees everything. When night falls, the villa becomes hushed again. Torches flicker gently in iron sconces. The master retires to his private quarters, where his bed is laid out, his sandals removed for him, his robes folded. Somewhere in a chamber beyond, the enslaved staff sleep in close quarters, behind a curtain or near the kitchen, ready to rise early, to begin again. Some, like the steward, may read by lamplight. There are pleasures here, there is beauty. But beneath it all is tension, This luxury is not shared, it is extracted, built upon a foundation of labor, silence, and fear. And yet there is peace too, not always in the hearts of its inhabitants, but in the rhythm, in the structure of the day. A day in a senator's villa is not loud. It is not dramatic. We leave now, stepping out beneath a moonlit sky. The trees sway gently. Somewhere in the distance, a wolf howls. Even the masters sleep. And now we return to the present. The fires of Rome are long extinguished. The empires have faded. The ash has settled. The villas, the barracks, the baths, all of it lies beneath dust, ruin, or glass and museum case. But tonight we traveled their paths once more. We followed Spartacus across the hills, watched as hope ignited and was extinguished in blood and silence. 4 layers of the Roman world. We wandered through Pompeii's frozen lanes, where graffiti still echoes and bread lies blackened but whole. And we ended in the still marble hush of a senator's villa, where fountains flow over stones placed by unseen hands. We woke in the cold shadows of slavery, where life was toil, and freedom a whisper passed in secret. At the bottom, the burdened. At the top, the adorned. And all of them gone. 4 lives. All of them real. All of them human. The chains are rusted. The ash is cool. The violence stilled. What remains is the echo, a quiet reminder that history, however harsh, can be looked upon with softness, with understanding, and with peace. And though we looked calmly, gently, we saw much. The weight of inequality, the endurance of spirit, the traces of beauty and brutality interwoven in the rhythm of daily life. The Roman world was not one world, it was many, built atop one another like stones in a wall, but not forgotten. As you rest now, perhaps already drifting into sleep, take comfort in the distance of it all. So let your mind settle. Let the walls of the villa crumble into ivy and stillness. Let the streets of Pompeii blur. Let the fires of rebellion fade. You are here, safe, in your time, in your bed, in a world built from the memory of many others. Good night, and sleep well.